Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House. I am sepia. Today, I am black and white. I don't know what I hear. Oh, I know what I hear. Okay, sorry. All right, so I've got a good tale today, and welcome to everybody in the chat. I'm somber, but I'm going to tell you a tale. And this tale has to do with actually a local town, and not far from me. But the story, you'll see, is a worldwide kind of story. So I'm going to get started, and welcome. Thank you, Kim, for moderating. And as long as you can hear me, yes, we're ready to go. I'm ready to go. Okay. So I was going around the internet, and playing with my usual different stories that I might find. And I found this story about 1943 that took place on Lake Onondaga near where I live. So, of course, I have made a video for you to open up the show, and I wanted everybody to join the chat, and it tells a story, okay? Tells a story, and I'm going to tell you the story. Are we ready? Because this show today, it's a tale. Yeah, you kind of dig the sepia Sandy, huh? Well, dig it. I am sepia today. It is in the 40s. It is rainy. It is dreary. It was cold in the house. My hair wouldn't even dry. That's what kind of day it is. Okay, so are you ready, guys? Are you ready for the story to start? Okay, I'm going to start the story. Here we go. Here we go.
There is no shortage of information about the pollution in Onondaga Lake. The turn of the 20th century would find competing resorts on Onondaga Lake. Tens of thousands would flock to the west shore of the lake to shoot the chute at White City, to ride the carousel at Long Branch, or while the night away at the many dance halls of Pleasant Beach. As early as 1600, Onondaga Lake would begin showing up on maps across the Atlantic, and European powers would begin vying for access. Drawn by the presence of the salt, yes, but especially at first, it was access to the people of the region that drove so much interest. The Onondagas had lived with, on, and around Onondaga Lake for thousands of years. The lake was the centerpiece of the Iroquois Confederacy and is believed to be its founding place. As the most powerful entity on the continent, cooperation from the Iroquois was key to trading or even existing in the New World. To early European explorers and missionaries, Onondaga Lake would provide a point of entry, and on at least one occasion, provided a hasty retreat. Onondaga Lake has been many things to many people over the years. These are stories of industry and innovation.
Just didn't say, well, I think I'll just go out and pollute the lake today. We're not going to throw stuff in it. But that stuff happened over time. People didn't realize what they were doing.
Three little words, but they were enough to send shockwaves through Solvay and the rest of the central New York area today, as Allied Chemical became the biggest contributor to a growing list of companies that have left or reduced employment in this area. Hello once again, everybody. Well, this has been a part of the Syracuse area skyline for more than 100 years. It has been the subject of complaints about water and air pollution, but it has also been the economic lifeblood of a community. In about 8 months, the plan, originally known and in many quarters still known as the Solvay Process Company, will fall silent. That means
the Allied plant here is the last manufacturer of synthetic soda ash in the country, and company officials said it can no longer compete with the ash that is mined in the western United States. Particularly damaging, said Anthony Massari of Allied, was an increase in the amount of ash being obtained in the West, combined with a drop in the number of glass bottles being manufactured. Soda ash is a key element in the manufacturing of glass. Those two factors have caused soda ash prices to plummet.
The prices have declined precipitously, and profitability of the operation is truly non-existent.
Tonight's Talk at 10, we're talking about cleaning up Onondaga Lake this summer. Dredging is scheduled to start. Officials are calling the $451 million phase of this cleanup project a milestone. 3 barges will be running 24 hours a day for 4 years.
Michael, the judge's ruling means that the waste being dredged here at Onondaga Lake will still be stored at Waste Bed 13 in Camillus. But neighbors tell me they're getting sick because they live next to that waste bed. And with this legal option off the table, they don't have many options left. Blame their health issues on the proximity to Waste Bed 13, where the contaminated sediment from the Onondaga Lake cleanup is being stored.
We've actually sat out here and that leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. It's that strong.
While growing up, Ron Greisick remembers his grandparents talking about the cleanup. 3 generations have lived in his Camillus home, but after all these years, something is just different.
It's just a shame that I can't live a normal life with other people. I've got to keep my windows closed all summer long.
Onondaga Lake was once called the most polluted lake in America. Many thought it would remain that way forever. A once shimmering natural jewel, diminished by 200 years of population growth, urban development, and industrial activity.
Okay, well, there's the backstory of Solvay, and I really hope you enjoyed this. So, because I told you the backstory by pulling together a video and something that I wasn't even really, I didn't even know about. So, here we go. I'm going to start with not the toxic spill either. I'm actually going to start with there's other ones too, remembering the 1943 Thanksgiving process spill. And that guy that's on that video there, he tells the story as well. But I'm going to read the Blob, which is the Solvay process sludge. And it was like a horror film come true. So sit back and relax and listen to the show, listen to the story, and learn. My New York hometown was named after a Belgian chemist, Ernest Solvay. His process for producing soda ash was used by some enterprising Americans to found, with Ernest Solvay's approval, the Solvay Process Company, the cornerstone of the village where I grew up in the 1940s. Having the Solvay Process Company a short distance from our street was both good news and bad. Yes, I'm losing my voice, Kim. The factory employed thousands of people, including my father, my grandfather, and an uncle who lived next door. The company also provided many services for village residents, and in the early years was Solvay's social, medical, and educational center. However, the factory also belched smoke and filled the air with a gritty soot that undoubtedly was hazardous to our health. Waste from the Solvay Process Company, along with the sewage from the nearby city of Syracuse, destroyed once lovely Onondaga Lake. Polluting that lake forever tarnished the reputation of the Solvay Process Company, which in the 1920s became a division of Allied Chemical, because it was considered so important to the economic life of the area. The Solvay Process Company had its way on several controversial environmental issues, which is why, despite strong opposition, the factory dumped its waste along the west shore of the Onondaga Lake. Hang on a sec. Okay. The company built huge holding areas that were surrounded by tall concrete dikes. These were the most visible waste depositories, though at least one of the smaller plants operated by Solvay Process openly flowed directly into the lake. Yuck, right? In the early 1940s, there were eight large waste beds across the street of the New York State from the fairgrounds on State Fair Boulevard, with a ninth waste bed under construction. Those who opposed the dumping at the turn of the century predicted it was just a matter of time before at least one of the dikes containing waste would burst. And what do you think it did? It burst. Okay. Most of those concerned, obviously, were residents of a section of the town of Gettys known as Lakeland. Company officials insisted this would not happen, though they admitted that only the waste exposed to the air would harden. Everything under the crusty top would remain quicksand soft. At the bottom of this page is a story that should have served as a warning. So at 3 a.m. on Thanksgiving Day, 1943, a dike broke. For people unlucky enough to be living in the few houses along the strip of State Fair Boulevard, they were about to experience the terror of a real-life blob. Holy crap. And that was 15 years before the Hollywood version. The United Press, they reported it like this. And this is Niagara Falls, 1943. Tons of lava-like refuse from the Solvay process company's soda ash plant were being cleared away today under a 500-foot breakthrough into a waste bed dike. It caused unestimated property damage and forced more than 50 persons to evacuate homes and one hotel. The waste formed a gap in the dike yesterday and inundated the fairgrounds and the boulevard, which was blocked for a half a mile with heavy, thick sludge. And at times, this reached a depth of 8 feet. Oh, the waste came from one of the several beds built by the company on the shores of Onondaga Lake. For years, the deposit of chemical refuse. It had been pumped into the bed for years and left to harden into great chalky mounds since no practical reclamation use has ever been found for it. County, state, and Solvay company engineers were faced with a difficult problem of cleaning up the mess, since the unwieldy substance could not be readily pumped or scraped away. That's pretty gross. Work in the plant, engaged mostly in war production, was not affected by the flood. So they kept people going to work, even if they had to walk through all that sludge and muck and mire, they didn't care. Fortunately, there were no fatalities, which seems incredible in the view of this description of the incident. November 26th, 1943. Shortly before 3 a.m., the family of Attilio Vanetti, 528 State Farm Boulevard, was awakened by a heavy, dull thud. It was like a dull, a thud. It sounded like maybe, I don't know. I'm looking for the way it might have sounded, but there you go. Okay, I found it. They were awakened by this. Boom. Saving my voice a little. So, Mr. Vanetti, he's looking down. He sees a sticky mass, and it had engulfed the lower floor of his home, and that the 6 adults and 5 children in the house were marooned. An air depot guard was returning from a tour of his post near the State Farm Fair Coliseum when he saw his station house floating toward him on the approaching wall of white waste. Oh my God. He turned to run, slipped and fell, losing his false teeth and his revolver. Leaving both, he got up and ran from the oncoming waste, which formed a moving billow more than 8 feet high. Other guards escaped from the flood and summoned aid. Sheriff Robert Wasmer, first civilian official to reach the scene, called out all available deputies, police said. Solvay police and fire departments, along with the Red Cross telephone company. Oh, yeah, we need definitely. They needed the telephone company. And Solvay process company crews and others who aided in the rescue because they had to keep in touch with each other, right? And in those days, it was a, hello, pick up the phone. Hello, is this the Solvay fire department? Well, we have a bit of a problem. We have some white goo that's 8 feet high downstairs. Yeah, so they definitely needed the phone. The 11 members of the Vanetti family were rescued by Fred Holgert, the chief of auxiliary military police, who reached them by rowboat, which was towed out by the cable lines attached to a winch. Telephone company employees traveling along the cables. Get this, guys. Imagine this. From pole to pole, got ropes to other residents stranded in boats, and they were towed to safety. More than 20 persons escaped from the State Fair Hotel to dry land by boat, said owner Mrs. Mary Ribbick. Mrs. Ribbick's daughter, Mrs. Robert J. Miller, and her infant daughter, they were rowed to safety. She said she was awakened shortly after 3 a.m. by like this really loud gurgling sound. And she said it was under her and her basement. It was just like filling with waste. So, that's like pretty gross, huh? Filling with waste. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, anyway, north of the Miller home is the Venetti home, directly in the path of the flood. In this home were Mrs. Antoinette Venetti, Attilio Venetti, and their daughter Camille, 10, and Mrs. Adeline Venetti, her 5-year-old daughter Marguerite, and her mother-in-law Margaret Anita. Living on the second floor were Mrs. Mary and Mrs. Remo Venetti and Mrs. Mary Venetti's children, Joan, 10, and Angelo, 5, and Rosemarie, 3. In the next home lived Mr. and Mrs. Bolslaw Piankowski and their 5 children, Helen, 18, Edmund, 17, Walker, 16, and 9-year-old twins, Billy and Casimir. The Piankowskis, with the aid of SPCA attendants and neighbors, were able to save their young bull, a cow, a pig, and a dog from their livestock, but a pig and several hundred chickens, geese, and ducks belonging to them were sucked in under the flood. That's pretty gross. No, I didn't like that. I'm looking for that under the flood. The latter 2 homes, they suffered the brunt of the flood's onslaught, being covered by first-story windows. The garage of the Venetti home was telescoped and flattened against the main structure by the force of the flow. A vacant house north above Piankowski's was inundated. Fred Steingraber and his mother lived in the next house, and William Bickley, he lived alone in the next home, while 2 families lived in the 7th house, actually within the lava area. Mr. and Mrs. Alonzo Susco and their son Arthur lived downstairs, and they were rowed to dry land by members of the Solvay Fire Department after they had sought safety upstairs in an apartment occupied by Mr. and Mrs. Edgar Lent. I hope you are listening and hearing this and seeing this story in your mind's eye. Several automobiles parked in the driveway of these homes, and several score more parked near the 4-H building under the state fairgrounds were mired to the windowsills in white mush. As it swept on from its break in the dike, the sticky torrent picked up one automobile on the fairgrounds belonging to a depot employee and carried it more than 1,000 feet from where it had been parked. A guard shanty was transported 50 yards across the roadway into a mass of metal drums of fuel which toppled down their neat pyramid piles to lay strewn across a large area. When it reached the stone retaining wall around the State Fair racetrack, the flood was diverted to the north and the west, but not until after it had filled the underpass with an adhesive mass. Because of its slightly higher elevation, the roadbed of the DL and Oswego line was cleared shortly after noon yesterday by a locomotive pushing the mass of wooded cross ties ahead of it. In turn, shoved the soupy mass to either side, leaving the top of the rails barely visible after each trip. A large train crew, armed with shovels, worked steadily to keep the right-of-way clear as that slimy ooze crept back across the tracks. Hundreds of workers and dozens of plows, now this is 1943, remember, scrapers, bulldozers, carryalls, trucks, and tractors from the state of New York, county and city public works departments worked at the seemingly hopeless task of clearing the roadway, which may have blocked traffic for many days. More than 100 truckloads of cinders were dumped onto the roadway during the night to give the waste enough consistency to be shoveled or pushed aside permanently. The method was finally abandoned last night in favor of dissolving the semi-liquid waste with more water and pumping the solution away. Where do you think they pumped it, guys? Solvay Process Company crews last night began this procedure at the northern rim of the flooded area near the second state-found Fairgrounds gate. With a small gate pump was placed in operation near the roadside, and gradual headway was made in draining off some of the mass. Workmen were testing the dike walls north of the break to determine if they would be strong enough to stand additional pressure should it be decided to pump the runaway shit, toxic, sludgy, salty crap back over the 50-foot wall. By late yesterday afternoon, the waste had spread out over an area of nearly 2 square miles and had settled down, leaving white high water marks on trees and light poles, and as high as 8 feet opposite the break, but dropping to less than 1 foot on the trees near each end of the flow's width. In addition to the task at hand yesterday afternoon, additional details of sheriffs were required to handle an almost constant stream of traffic coming out of State Fair Boulevard as thousands of curious motorists drove to the scene. And remember what a mess that must have smelled like, because in 1943 there was really nothing that held the exhaust in very well, did it? Those mingled with shifts at both the Halicom steel plant and the air storage depot gave the main gate the appearance of Governor's Day Fair in the pre-war days. Finally, as the word spread through the community, more and more motorists lined the highways to the fairground last night, but only those with official business at the grounds or the steel plant were allowed past the guards at Milton Avenue in Solvay and at the foot of Willis Avenue and State Fair Boulevard. Clothing was obtained for evacuees, and food was provided at a canteen set up by Frank Shattuck, who was called, I think I worked with his great granddaughter, Kathy Shattuck, honest to God. Or granddaughter, actually. Really, seriously, New York is small. Anyway, the Solvay plant engaged in the manufacture of soda ash and many byproducts, which enter into production of many war materials, including explosives. Stayed in full production, with waste being pumped out at the normal rate, but diverted to another sludge bed. They didn't miss a beat, okay? The Halcombe plant was not affected by the deluge, which reached only one of the steel company's northernmost parking lots, miring one worker's car. The Army Air Force's storage depot at the fairgrounds was humming along as usual, since across to the main gate had not been blocked. While spattered Army trucks entered and left the affected area of the grounds all day, transporting material from the flooded buildings, which included the Coliseum, the Waldorf building, and several neighboring structures now used for storage of war material. Solvay Waste Storage opposed 50 years ago a considerable opposition to the use of the lands adjoining Onondaga Lake for waste from the Solvay Processes Company plant arose when the firm began operations here more than 50 years ago. Captain Joseph Bondi of East Genesee Street and Frank Hopkins, who practiced law under the firm of Hopkins and Bondi, they fought the use of these lands for their client John D. Ryan, and Colonel Bondi predicted then to Frederick Hazard, the president of the company, that someday the pressure of the waste would break the dikes and overflow. The company wanted to acquire Mr. Ryan's land between the plant and the lake, and Ryan, he didn't want to sell. Colonel Bondi recalled today, he fought against the sale, and also, as a member of the State Assembly, he opposed a bill to give the Solvay Process Company the right to condemn lands for waste disposal. They really wanted to shit up that whole area, right? I raised the objection that the refuse might seep through and poison wells, Colonel Bondi said today. Oh, kind of like fracking, right? I contended that it would poison whitefish and other fish in the Onondaga Lake, and it did. I was one of the original incorporators of the Onondaga Yacht Club and was Commodore then, and I opposed the use of lands for waste as best I could. I talked with Mr. Hazard and with William J. Smith of the company, with Patrick Hayes and P.J. Cody. I told Mr. Hazard the waste would create a general nuisance. Later, he tried to get legislation to do certain things, including, I think, the right to condemn, and I fought that, and my opposition, it forced me out of politics. I didn't go back to the legislature after that. Yep. Shit out of luck because of the shit, right? Later, the Herald Journal reported that while Solvay process executive and engineers were unable as yet to pinpoint the cause of the break in the dike, they were satisfied it wasn't caused by sabotage. Okay, at least it wasn't. That'll get the flush of the day. All right, let's get that flush going with no music. Yes, I need a drink. Yup. Okay, that's basically what it was. So they weren't satisfied that, it wasn't. An estimated 40,000 tons of sludge had poured across State Fair Boulevard. A company spokesman said the soupy stuff, that pretty soupy, icky stuff, it was a slurry of flocculated material, including calcium carbonate, magnesium, and small quantities of calcium chloride and salt brine, and it's non-poisonous. Well, I don't know about that. They always say that, right? The dike that broke was just 4 years old. The flood of waste covered 85 acres inside the fairgrounds. All right, so it was, it said by the end of Friday, less than 48 hours after the break, more than 2,500,000 gallons of water had been pumped into the area to flush the sludge into drainage sewers, which I am certain took the sludge either directly to Onondaga Lake and into 9 Mile Creek, which flowed into the lake, which was doomed many years earlier. So there's a whole other story here, and I'll just go through it really quick. This was from November, and it said the sludge goes haywire. It went haywire. It seems hardly necessary to emphasize the deplorable results of the 500-foot break in the dike constructed for the purpose of holding back huge quantities. So this was just a few days later, right? And they were criticizing the shit out of this. And it would be easy and perhaps the popular course to indulge in vociferous denunciation of the Solvay process company for this, but one hardly sees where one would get us anywhere, either from the standpoint of the people who have directly suffered as a result of this, or from the standpoint as a community. But anyway, they were an asset to the company, so let's let them fix it. So basically, going down here, they had a waste canal that was unaffected, and that canal was 1,500 feet long, 8 feet wide, and up to 4 feet deep. That was in there in the thing, and so each day 85 million gallons of waste was pumped from the Solvay. Wait a minute, am I looking at that right? I can't get it big enough for you. I don't know if I can get this bigger for you. You know, what a suck-ass thing. I didn't make it bigger. I'm sorry. Well, anyway, it was pumped from the Solvay plant into the canal, which emptied into the Onondaga Lake, and it was pumped through pipes and created a fast current. So oh my God. This is killing me. According to a story in the Herald Journal, a wooden fence ran along part of one side, presumably the side away from the company, as a way of preventing bystanders to get too close to the canal. Unfortunately, there were places where it was too easy for anyone to approach the canal. Wow. While it seems incredible that there weren't more tragedies like this one, you know, there was one that took the life of 7-year-old Angelo Greco. He was walking too close to the edge and he slipped into the canal. That's horrible. So this goes on And for the interest of time, I have the link in, but this is all the newspaper articles. This was about the boy that was stuck in the sticky mass of Solvay waste. There was another boy, he was pulled to safety. And wow, he said it just pretty much sucked. God, wow. Oh, and there was a fire also. So this was a pretty suck-ass thing, This after World War II, the Solvay process company dumped its waste elsewhere on the company-owned land, out of sight from most area residents. In 1985, the factory was officially closed. Yay! It was officially closed. Yahoo! Okay, we saw that in my video, and it took years, and they're still doing. They were doing the work. Oh my God! I know Solvay as like a sign off the highway to go to Syracuse, and this was the original yacht club, and this is a picture of White City, a popular but short-lived amusement park. Was really, really interesting, I thought, and so what I want to do now, really quick, is I'm going to go on and just show you a couple of pictures of what this looked like. It was kind of like yuck, but I'm not sure. Let's see if I can get this. I hope you're enjoying this show. I really are. I really am hoping you are. No, I don't think so. I think I only have that one library picture. But anyway, you get the idea of how ugly the thing was. All right. So really quickly, you get the idea that this kind of episode in life, right? It's not just New York State. It's really all over the world. Okay? All over the world. And so it does not have a happy ending because the company left. All right? The company left, but there's no happy ending. Because guess where they went? Italy. Yep. Same shit, different company. They went to Italy. And the same things. Solvay to cut, this was in September 6, 2022. Solvay to cut waste discharge off Italy, ending tussle with activist. So 2022, the Solvay Corporation has been letting out industrial waste into the sea from soda ash production on a Tuscan beach. In wake of pressure from environmentalists and activist Bluebell Capital Partners, Solvay, which had previously pushed back on concerns that the waste may be harmful. Do you get the idea that this is like insanely same shit, different day stuff? And they were discharging into the ocean in Italy. And you want to think, okay, well, when they moved to Italy, I don't have all of the history of that. But when they moved to Italy, who did they bribe? And who did they lie to? I don't know the rest of the story. I could have spent days, and I could have made a video. If I was had the time to be a real filmmaker, I would definitely have done this whole thing. So they dump 250,000 tons a year into the Mediterranean, a practice that has transformed the coastline, a stretch that has been dubbed the White Beaches or a Spiagge Bianche. Wait, Spiagge Bianche. The company said it would invest in a new soda ash production technology that could eliminate all limestone residues. Okay, do you really think that's going to happen? I'm going to give it a second toilet flush. Yep, second toilet flush. I don't think that's going to happen. All right, so mercury from the plant has contaminated the seabed. A 2020 report by Tuscany's Environmental Protection Agency, they said. And while a 2017 finding for the Institute for Coastal Marine Environment said material discharge threatens seagrass. So it's just more of the same shit. More of the same shit. It is. And yeah. More of the same. So let me get back to you guys, and we'll have a little chit chat here about this show, and find myself here. Yes, the gray. And the little Sandy had stayed on. All right. So I hope you understood why I did this show today. It's a story that maybe took place in New York, which was a beautiful state with natural resources. So I guess the Great Salt Lake that we are losing, the Great Salt Lake that we are losing. Should I go back to color? Should I be me? The Great Salt Lake didn't have anything on Onondaga Lake, the original home of Onondaga and the Senecas. And there's a lot of beautiful people that I've known in my life, and I'm still friends with, that are Seneca and Onondaga. And I thank God. I'm not religious, so it's not a God that I just am thankful for those friendships that I have. Okay? I'm not ill. He thought I was ill. So there you go. It's a story that goes around the world. Around the world. Mm-hmm. And Italy was the last one to suffer by Solvay. I don't even know what kind of glass they're making anymore. So everyone wants their products, but few understand what precedes them. Exactly. Hi, Veg. And hi, Dawn and Epimu. Yeah, it's great. Oh my gosh. The Italian islands landslide disaster looked horrific too. Well, I'm 46 minutes. Hi, Scott and Donald, Patty P, Gary, Nadia. It's great to see all of you guys here with me. I hope you enjoyed the story. I have to keep my voice from being lost. And geez, it's not even like I'm smoking my bong, because I'm not. I'm trying to save my voice. Okay. So have a wonderful, wonderful day. And I think this Tuesday is the night. I'm doing every other Tuesday. And every other Tuesday, there you go. Every other Tuesday, Sunday afternoons, or Friday night with Jennifer. Thank you. I hope you learned something, because I didn't know the story. I really didn't know the story. And it's a story that's multiplied by so many places. Yeah, so many places all over the world. Thank you very, very much.